My deep appreciation of theater history was instilled in me by Tom Empey, a college mentor to me and hundreds of others. While teaching Greek theater terms, he would grab the fabric of his slacks and say, "You see these pants? Euripides Eumenides," making light of content that could be considered rather dry and stuffy while still maintaining respect for the art, which is what I want to do with this podcast. For each episode, I invite a guest from the many paths my theater career has taken me down. I give my guest no idea what we'll be talking about, but they know we're going to find an outrageous story about theater history and perhaps get a better understanding about why we're still doing it after all these years. So welcome to Euripides Eumenides, and I am your host, Aaron Odom.
Apocalypse, apocalypse, I said, why you wanna show up now? Just when the heart of my life was getting good. I'll give you one more chance. Walk on out of the door, yeah. Get your ass to getting where the getting is good.
Good morrow, Eumenidites. This is Aaron Odom from Trident Theater bringing you another episode of Euripides Eumenides, a theater history podcast. As we march ever closer to episode 100, I have a special treat for you today. Several weeks ago, I was contacted by one of a pair of playwrights who have written an amazing new show, and they wanted to share that show with my audience. Dissonance is a new play by Marci J, Duncan and Kerry Sandell, who both teach at the University of West Florida. I'll let them describe it a little bit more as we get into the episode, but the play is about two friends of different races who, in a post-COVID world, realize that they've never had a legitimate conversation about race and how their race influences their personal views of the world. I am always on board for a think piece like this, and after hearing about it, I really hope you check it out. I know that Marci and Kerry would love to present their play in your community and would be open to having honest conversations in your community about this and other issues. So I'm going to suggest it now. Get out a pen and paper, or just take a note on your phone, and go to this address, dissonanceplay.com. That's DISSONANCEPLAY.com, and you'll get access to a ton of content they've crafted around the play, their social media pages, and possibly how you can get tickets if Dissonance is playing near you. Again, perhaps the discussion we have in today's episode will inspire you enough to seek them out and have them bring Dissonance to your community. I would highly recommend it. But in any case, since the three of us are all performers, I found a really compelling topic for us to delve into for this episode. After we discuss Dissonance for a bit, Marci, Kerry, and I begin discussing a truly enigmatic and surprising character in theater history. So, without further ado, here's episode 93, Nicol Williamson. Well, amazing to see both of you in the situation that I actually am able to corner you, because it sounds like you have had a crazy busy summer with this show.
Oh, yes. Crazy busy indeed.
Yeah. And you just got back from which festival was it?
The International Black Theater Festival in Winston-Salem. And I'm going to tell you,
wow.
that conference, that festival takes over the city. It was phenomenal. It really
It was amazing. We had the opportunity to perform our show Dissonance 4 times, and every audience was full, and every audience was just so receptive to our show. And hopefully it opens up opportunities for us to take the show all over the country, because that's really our goal.
Yeah. Well, as we've discussed it and as I've read about it and seen some stuff about it, it is a very timely piece. And something that, we talk about, I've talked about it so many times on the show, how how Aristotle defined theater, and then in Rome, how Horace tried to set it in stone. But Horace says, obviously, we are here to educate and entertain. So, in some cases, it's not necessarily like a classroom lesson. It's something that as people, we need to sit and probably chew on for a little while and send you away with some ideas to kind of mull over. So I think this is an incredibly important piece in that. So the play is Dissonance. And tell me a little bit about the show.
Well, the show asked the question, the play asked this question: can a Black woman and a white woman who have been friends for 20 years have an honest conversation about race?
Ooh.
And will their friendship survive it?
Ah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
question. That's the question that the play asks of our audience.
Mhm.
And throughout the play, you get a chance to see why these women are friends, how they're friends, how they love one another. But you also get a chance to see what they do on an everyday basis to kind of avoid having any
Ah.
intentional conversation about race. You know, you
Right.
see them do this dance, right? And then something happens in the play where they're kind of forced to talk about some things, right? They're opening up this cafe together, they're locked in, their lives are very much intertwined, they're going into business together. And you see them setting up this business together, decorating this cafe together. That's the physical thing you see them doing.
Yeah, right,
But
right.
you also see them trying to fight for their relationship. That's what you see them doing as
Oh.
well.
Oh, that's
And the play
great.
is set after the summer of 2020 when we all experienced what we experienced in the summer of 2020 with the civil
Yeah.
unrest after the murder of George Floyd during COVID lockdown. And that's really when we came to create the show. We sat down and started writing it after that time. And so it is set in this time where there are conversations that do need to be had. And that many of us, and these two characters, Angela and Lauren, are no exception, became very adept at avoiding the elephant in the room over and over again, and to see that they love one another and they have this friendship, but there's these whole big chunks of each other that they haven't seen or really discovered.
Mhm.
So it's a conversation, and it can be a challenging conversation, but it's also, it's a very hopeful play about unity. And so we've had a wonderful time telling the story of these two women.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and Carrie, when you and I chatted recently, you were telling me a bit about how you came up with the process of writing this thing amongst you two, and I really appreciate what you had to say, because today you could take about anything right now and it's just a politicized thing. I mean, the Olympics are
Yeah.
happening right now, and we're actually having to remind people of what defines woman. And you're like,
Yeah.
and then you have people going, no, 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 no. I know better what a woman is than an actual woman. Let me tell you about that. Um, but Carrie, I appreciated what you said about how you came to it with, you were coming from a place of, we are hoping to be unified by the end of this, at least. So yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I went back and looked. So, like I said, everything was closed down for COVID. So, Marci and I sat down and met by Zoom, and we opened up a Google Doc and we started having these conversations and asking each other very, very intimate questions, very pointed questions about race and our experience with it and our understanding of it. Um, and I went back to our original document from 2021, February of 2021, I think. And what we had written across the top before we started anything was the definition of unity, and then a statement saying that is our goal here, is to seek unity and understanding. And we kind of laid out these, we didn't know it at the time, but we laid out these community rules of, I'm going to screw up and say something stupid and offend you. You're going to say something stupid and offend me. But let's understand that we're seeking unity, and let's be quick to forgive. And it just set up this really safe container where we could have these conversations that we might not have had, just like the characters in the play. We might just have avoided or let go, or overlooked, or said, no, it's not, I don't want to ask that, or I don't want to say that. And because we also had the distance because of COVID of the Google Doc, then we were able to sometimes sit and go, I don't know, I got to think about that, and really search our hearts and assess, instead of responding, assess, how do I feel about that? Or I haven't really looked at that and I'm not sure how I feel, and I probably need to analyze that because my first reaction isn't what I thought it was going to be. So it gave us this really beautiful way to build the skeleton and have these conversations without, because we had set up these community rules without our emotions on our sleeve, without
Mhm.
our nerves raw. because we kind of were in this together. So, great way to write a play. It really is. It's a great way to collaborate with someone. Don't underestimate the power of a Google Doc.
Yeah, you get some real raw dialogue there too.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'll ask this question. And then through this process of writing this show, you both have kind of indicated that you are these characters in a way. You've had this relationship with each other for a number of years. How did it change your relationship?
Well, the first question we always get is, have you guys been friends for 20 years? So that answer is no. We've only been friends for about 6 years. The other question was, yeah, it's still a significant amount of time. The other question is, it's like, were you really truly best friends when you started this project together? And the answer is also no, we weren't. We respected one another. Kerry's an artist, I'm an artist, and she was coming to see my play that I was in. Because I was her teacher at one point. And so she was just coming to see the show that I did. And but she had she wanted to talk to me after and said, how are you doing during this climate? So I think from that point to the point where we really started really working and talking through these difficult questions, I think that is what escalated our relationship from 0 to 60. By the time we were done with this entire process, from, speaking to each other over the Google Docs and Zoom, really getting into some of the hard questions, and also the second portion of that, speaking these words out loud to one another in person in a workshop rehearsal, that was a different level, right? Because it's like, okay, we'll have a read through. You read, I read, but actually up and going through the blocking and working through the emotions and the truth of what the text says, though, going through that together, along with our director, that was a seriously bonding moment. And when we opened the show in my hometown, Kerry stayed at my house with my mama and my loud behind family. Right. She got a chance to really see Marci without code switching, without masks, without everything. She got to see who I really was. Right. And same with her. And I think all of those steps really solidified our relationship. And now we're really and truly like family. It's so weird, but I had a death in the family during our separated time, because I was teaching in Virginia and Kerry was back home, and so we were meeting for the first time back together in person to do this festival. And when I saw Kerry, I just exhaled. And I knew I was home again, right? I had been away for 6 weeks and away from my family. And when I got a chance to see her, it was like seeing my family. So I think this process has made our relationship more authentic. And we don't agree on everything. We don't agree on everything.
No.
We have, a faith-based commonality, but we have different opinions about different things. But we have done the ultimate fight, right? We've done the ultimate fight.
Yeah.
Talk about race. And now we can talk about anything.
Yeah.
We really can talk about anything.
Well, I was just going to say, because of that, I think, Marci, I think you would agree. I'm not going to speak for you, but because we did go from 0 to 60, and now we've got this time of trust that we've built because of this, the show, I mean, one of the comments we get, other than y'all have been friends for 20 years, right, is I feel like I was in the cafe with you having a conversation. This was the most authentic cafe. I felt like I was eavesdropping. And I think because all of that trust has been built, the authenticity comes through in the performances.
I mean, honestly, I'm hearing you say that, and it's taking me back to the first time I ever watched Master Harold and the Boys. And I'm like, yep, I feel like I was in that tea shop and having an honest conversation, and I left a different person. But that idea is so fascinating to me in these widely polarized, divisive times. It's like, at the end of the day, we all want to be safe. We all want a roof over our head. We want to make sure our families are taken care of. We want to make sure we have enough food to eat and we have the means to do all that. So it's like, if we come together on any political issue, knowing that all of us have those ideas, we might just be able to, at the very least, instead of being vehemently opposed to each other, just go, you know what? I agree to disagree with you.
Absolutely.
I would hope that. So
Absolutely.
I
know
love
what?
this idea.
In the creation of this, Kerry said it earlier. I think you have to decide that you want unity.
Yeah.
You have to decide that. And that has to be what leads you. We have in our little group, Kerry and I, and then our director, we have made I love you just very natural. We say it and we mean it and we say it often because we want to remember that. We want to remember that, and we want to make sure that that's on the forefront of our brain, that what we're doing is in love. Our intention is in love, and the way we do it is through love. So we have to remember unity and love. That's our goal. That's the way we roll, right? Because if not, it'll just be, I want to win. I want to be right. I want to get you told. I want to make sure you see my perspective, and all the, that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a part of the process, but that's not all, right?
No.
So I think you in producing work like this and producing art like this, another comment we get is, aren't y'all exhausted after y'all finish that show? But they're like, y'all did a lot. Oh my goodness, it was so much. But in all honesty, this show brings me life. It brings me life because it puts hope out there. You know what I mean?
I've been in so many casts. I've been in so many productions, and there are ones that everybody was on the same page. They're all like, we're all in this together. We're all one cog in the machine, and nobody fits the shape of my cog like I do. And we all understood that. And at the end of it, we all just went, God damn it, didn't we just make something amazing?
That's what we do. That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Oh, man.
Before we go on stage, we often say, I got your back. I got your back.
Yes.
And if I know that, I'm good. I'm good.
Mhm.
There's nothing that can happen on this stage that you will not leave me out to be humiliated. There's nothing that can happen. And the same is true for her. So that's fun times.
Absolutely.
That's fun times.
It is. And I mean, we've all been in shows where you get to the second or third week of a run and you're like, dear God Almighty, please let this be done. And we've never felt that way. We've been doing this show for 2 years, and we are so excited every time we see it because, like Marci said, it is life-giving. It's a nice experience to not be done with tag, done with the first week of run, and then be like, oh no, I got to keep going for another week or two. Because that happens more than we'd like to admit, I think.
Yeah.
But, going back to what you said, if we all see one another as humans with needs and commonality in that regard, when we first started writing Dissonance, it was 2 women and 2 moms and 2 wives that, were going through this time. And so it was important to try to not, there are political aspects to the play just because that's the reality of it and everything that was going on. But we tried very hard to show an even-handed portrayal of differing experiences, and tried not to politicize anything we were saying, because at the end of the day, it's a human issue. It's a human issue. It's not a political issue. And, I think we all need to keep that in mind as we're going into another election year that looks to be unpleasant again. Oh, sweet Lord.
Okay. We could talk about that till the cows come home. But
oh my gosh.
I do. I so appreciate that's how this issue is being brought up and talked about. And I think that's fascinating. So I'm going to transition there, because what we were just talking about the, I'll say it. I have a short list of people that I just would never prefer to work with again. I had an instructor in college who said, this business, anything you do can get around. And if you were viewed as any kind of unpleasant or abrasive, or, oh, he didn't get along with that person, then that could cost you your next job. And so she said, you always have to have a phrase whenever you finish a show, that if there's somebody that you're like, I really don't care if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, that, you could shake their hand at the cast party and say, it has been a privilege to work with you.
That's
I've
right.
learned so much. Not going to tell you what I learned, but I learned a lot.
And I know I've done some stuff on stage that might not be the best for my stage partners, but I try to improve with each time I do. But there are just some people out there who can't help themselves, and they got some behavior and some stuff that they do on stage that just is no good. So, my friends, getting into this episode today, to kind of get us thinking about stuff like that, I asked you a question a little bit earlier, and I want to see what your responses are. What is something that you consider to be absolutely inexcusable behavior by an actor on stage? Marci, I'll start with you.
I will say it's inexcusable for an actor to give me notes.
Ooh, yes.
Don't tell me how to do my job.
Right.
Because it's not your vision. It's the director's vision.
Yeah.
And what I oftentimes really can't stand is for an actor to coach me so that they look better, so that they can do what they wanted to do, right? Like they have a vision for the scene, and they're like, so if you could just do this, so then I could do that. I'm like, OMG. Please get away from me.
Yeah.
Yep. Been there before. And I've often trained students, like, go up the ladder. Go up the ladder. If you know that person is in the wrong spot, it's very easy to just go to the director and go, hey, I'm sorry, what, am I in the right place? Are we creating the stage picture? And then they go, no, Ted, you're totally wrong. Get over here. Like, okay, just wanted to check.
I mean, I remember one time I was doing this show. It was a Midsummer, and I was Hippolyta and Titania. So at this point, I was Titania, and my Oberon kept trying to hold my hand, and I was like, okay, we will do it. Okay, I'll hold your hand. But then he kept wanting to hold my hand for the whole scene, and I'm like, I need to be free, brother. Let me go. Let me go.
And that's a very minor example of this, but we've been around the game for a while, and this whole intimacy training hasn't been a big deal for a while. And I'm like, that is unwanted contact that is not discussed.
That's right.
And I often tell people, like, your trigger could be somebody holding your hand. That could be the reminder of, like, a relative who would take you into the back room and abuse you later. And you can't do that without asking. You got to check in. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Actors giving you notes. Piss on it. No, thank you.
Good one. Yeah. Good one.
Okay. Well, Kerry, what do you got?
So, I mean, we can talk about the obvious one of just not being prepared, but what I've noticed in the last decade or so, not to throw millennials under the bus, but I'll go ahead.
Please do.
Missing cues because you're on the phone backstage.
Oh.
Or, I mean, and I've had it happen a couple times where it's a late entry because they are on social media, and it drives me. Do you want to be here doing this or not?
Right.
This is act professional. This is a profession. So that's one that I think really is going to have super, super direct conversations by people like my beautiful friend Marci here, who teaches college acting, and drive that home. And I know you do, but I've had it with two different two different individuals that one was TikToking and posting while she was supposed to be entering
come
and
on.
on herself.
Come
And
on.
another one multiple times missed a cue and didn't arrive on stage because he was scrolling. And it's like, leave your phone in the dressing room.
Yeah.
So
That life
so
can
that
wait. That life can wait.
Yes,
I promise.
that is it's just, you know, the fact that it's happened more than once, I think it's got to be probably an up and coming issue that people are
Yeah.
going to see in theater.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I've seen it a lot. You know, I used to teach college too, and I never made a hard and fast rule about it, but I have seen people who they get like a big plastic bin and
Yep.
they have the stage managers go around and go, all right, put your phones in, and they go up to the light booth or something like that. And I'm like, that's a little, you know,
Yeah.
what if I do get that message that my house is on
Yeah.
fire in the middle of it?
Yeah.
Uh,
And
You
it's a
know-
push me, pull you between
Yeah.
personal responsibility and
Mhm.
accountability too. So
Mhm.
I get that. How do you address that, Marci?
I think too, I really try to teach professionalism. So I don't want to
Mhm.
take things away or mandate it.
Right.
But if it's becoming a problem, then I just address it. I'm like, Charles, put your phone up. You know, directly say to him, put your phone up. Okay, don't let me catch you with the hand. But I think too, you know, as I move through these professional spaces too, outside of the university, what I find is that there's a certain group of professionals that are like, okay, I'm a grown adult. I got a family. We got to get it in. Let's be productive and let's wrap it up, right?
Right.
But there are some individuals who don't necessarily share that same context. So they are wasting time. They are laughing and joking and hemming and hawing and TikToking and playing around.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's go. Let's be productive. Let's get it in. Let's take this blocking down. Let's be professional. Let's get it on, right?
Mhm.
But then you go up against people who don't necessarily have that same method, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's so funny to me how TikTok is currently the thing under fire that we apparently have foreign interests who are trying to get our information. I'm like, you know what they're getting? They're getting a whole bunch of little twits doing dances and people putting lenses on their faces so they look like dogs or anime characters.
That's
Wow,
it.
what a deep level of espionage we're getting.
Going on here, right?
Anyway, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Both of those are ridiculous things. But
What about you?
me, let me think. Here's the one thing I hate, and
Okay.
it kind of moves into both what both of you are talking about. When one actor decides that their contribution is more important than anybody else's.
Ooh.
Mm.
Mhm.
Ouch.
I was in a production where it was a farce.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple scenes where they were getting laughs from the audience. And so it made them get more excited. And they went harder and made it dangerous for other people.
Mm.
And I'm backstage just like I'm just gonna go out and do what I can. I'm not gonna be around these people at all. I don't want to ramp this up at all, but these people come back and they go, I would call that in the zone, wouldn't you? I'm like, you are straight out the zone, friend. You are like on another planet.
Clueless.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
no idea what you're doing. And fortunately, that is somebody I never have to work with again.
There you go.
Fantastic.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a name here, and this might bring up some stuff. You might already know this story, but oh my word, this is a crazy story. So here we go. Thomas Nicol Williamson was born on September 14th, 1936 in the Scottish town of Hamilton near Glasgow. At 18 months of age, he moved with his parents to Birmingham in England, but they soon sent him back to Hamilton to live with his grandparents at the beginning of World War II, as Birmingham was considered to be quite the target for an enemy bombing attack. You know, there was those nasty bombings in London, so they're like, oh, let's send the kids out. So his parents stayed in Birmingham, and young Thomas later admitted to feeling quite abandoned by his parents. You know, young kid, like he's 3 to 5 to 7 at that time. So yeah, I get it. After the war, he moved back to Birmingham and finished primary school. At age 16, he worked with his father in an aluminum manufacturing plant. However, he soon began and finished secondary school at the Birmingham School of Speech and Drama. He showed significant prowess and ability towards the dramatic arts, even though he complained about his time at the school, calling the institution, quote, nothing more than a finishing school for the daughters of local businessmen, which it probably was. But this gives us some early evidence of just how Williamson felt about the appropriate use of his time and talent. Now, after doing his 2 years of mandatory military service, Williamson returned home and turned to acting as a career. And I couldn't really find it in my research anywhere, but at some point, he just decided that he'd use his middle name as his stage name. So for the rest of his life, he was known as Nicol Williamson. Do you know this name?
Wait a minute. 8-1.
Oh, you're going to Google. Oh, don't Google so much. I got a story to tell.
Please do, because for some reason, that name sounds so familiar to me.
Yep. So it's Nicol, Nicol, and it's like if you were to shave and you nick all of your face, that's how it's pronounced, Nicol. So anyway, Nicol Williamson, he made his professional debut at the Dundee Rep in 1960 in Scotland. He quickly gained some critical acclaim and soon appeared on stage in Cambridge in 1961 and made his London debut playing flute in A Midsummer Night's Dream in 1962 at the Royal Court Theatre. In 1962, he also played Vladimir in the first major revival of Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, directed by Anthony Page. So, like, that was the first big revival after its premiere. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but Samuel Beckett loved him, like, absolutely loved him. So much so that he, like, invited him to his house after he saw him. And he's like, you just come hang out with me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. By 1964, the buzz about this powerful young performer was so great that he was cast by his now good friend and frequent director, Anthony Page, to play a morally conflicted lawyer in the John Osborne play, Inadmissible Evidence.
That's what it is. That mustache. Oh, my God. That mustache.
I know he didn't have that all his life, but yeah.
That is main character energy right there.
Oh, boy. He's got main character energy written all over him for the rest of his life. I mean, and he's not like a terribly handsome guy, but he caught attention. Let me tell you about this. For Inadmissible Evidence, the performance was so popular that it was brought to the U.S. for an out-of-town tryout in Philadelphia, and then a Broadway run in 1965, for which Williamson was nominated for a Tony Award. The performance was so popular and prolific that Williamson and Page revived it for a short run off Broadway in 1981.
Wow.
I mean, first of all, where did this man study? I need to go. Is it still in existence? Why is he so phenomenal? Look.
You need to go to a Scottish finishing school.
That's
apparently.
what I'm missing.
Scottish finishing school for girls.
Okay, I missed it.
Well, I don't think it was that. I'm going to talk about it a little bit here. He had some things that I think he needed to get off his chest, and he used the stage to do it. Ooh. So, yeah. Now, following the success of Inadmissible Evidence in 1965, Nicol Williamson got quite a few roles in film and stage. John Osborne, the playwright, claimed he was the greatest actor since Marlon Brando.
Wow.
I mean, that's big.
Big claim, yeah.
Hopefully, Williamson actually could learn his lines.
Marlon.
Have you seen that? I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine is so popular right now. They have some kind of a reel where Ryan Reynolds in the Deadpool costume is wearing like a whole sheet of Hugh Jackman's lines. And it's filmed. Yeah. It's all in reference to that shot during The Godfather, in which Robert Duvall has pages of Marlon Brando's lines on his chest. Wow. And they just filmed it so you couldn't see that. And you'll often see Brando like looking down at his chest and everything, but he does it in character.
Oh my gosh. He's a good cold reader. He's a good cold.
You're so good at reading cold.
Marci, I could never do that. I have to be like, wait a minute, where are my glasses? Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Right.
All right, well, now he's been given the claim of the greatest up-and-coming actor since whoever. So what happens next in that trajectory? They play Hamlet.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, because if
Uh-huh.
you're the best actor, you have to take on Hamlet.
You have
Of
to take on
course.
Hamlet. You can't
Have
just
to.
make anything new your own. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
Williamson first played the tortured Danish prince at the Roundhouse Theatre in London in 1968. And how'd he do? His performance was so impressive that he was widely regarded as the best Hamlet since John Gielgud first played the
Wow.
part in 1930 and for the better part of the next decade. And
Okay.
from what I understand, it was just how much Williamson poured himself into the part each night that was so impressive. It was quite obvious that the performance took a lot out of him each night.
That's a big, big role.
Oh my gosh.
That's
Man.
a big, so complicated, so nuanced.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never had the opportunity. In college, we did a performance study on King Lear. And for some reason, like, I think I was seen as the most mature of the group. So they kept going, you can play this
You win.
80-year-old king.
Right. You got it.
You got it.
Wow.
Now, but
Ah.
that hard work paid off. This production was taken to Broadway in 1969 and adapted to film that same year. And here are just a few descriptions of Williamson as a Hamlet, so you can get an idea of what he was like as a performer, rather than just take on my word that he was good, since good is such a relative and subjective term. In his review in Time magazine, Tony Richardson said that Williamson, quote, burns with incandescence and carries with him the smell of smoldering cordite. If he were not lit by an inner fire, he would be singularly unprepossessing.
Mm.
Whoa.
He came to life on stage. Wow.
All right, I would have had that put on a t-shirt and I would wear it every
You see what Tony said about me? This is in Time magazine.
I would introduce myself. Hi, I'm Marci, and I am an incandescent light. Do you understand?
You about me in the New York Times.
That's right. My article. Gosh, that is great.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, here's a better description. It's a little bit longer, but it's from a blogger I saw who saw the movie adaptation. He said it this way: if Olivier's performance might be seen as one kind of measure, then Williamson took that measure and willfully smashed it to pieces. Where Olivier was reflective, Williamson was dynamic. His performance, though, was beyond the merely energetic. It was manic. As a broad outline, I often describe it as playing Hamlet as a nervous wreck. Hamlet's vacillations were not philosophical musing, but a living reality of frustration and rage. There was a ratcheting up of his desire to exact the cruelest possible revenge on Claudius, and Williamson realized that with Shakespeare, the poetry can be trusted to take care of itself, and he traded a carefully enunciated rendering for the power of a singular performance. End quote.
Wow. I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah, but I love that. That's one of my, like, when I do Shakespeare, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to improve on the words.
Right.
You know, he's got it down.
They stand on their own.
Right. That's why it's written as poetry. It is poetry. So just understand that it's poetry, and you're not going to make the words better. You're just going to be able to add your interpretation to it. And I think that's amazing.
Trust the author and understand what he's saying. Yeah.
Right.
That's great. And I love that about Hamlet. Hamlet. I think we all are in love with Hamlet. But you know, you've heard people talk about, was he really insane or was he just acting like it? And like, I think you have to appreciate that there is some devastatingly profound things going on in his heart and his mind for it to make any sense. You know, it can't be a facade. So, I love that. I love that.
What were the demons this man was fighting? Because if he was able to give all of these roles so much depth and nuance, he must have used element of truth.
You know, I'm going to get to it later, but I don't know that we can come to a conclusion on that today, Marci.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
Well, not, you know, in my mind, there has to be something that informs your work. And if
Yeah.
you're willing to tell the truth, then your work will stand out from anybody else.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Yeah, we'll get into it a little bit later. We might be able to kind of tie some knots together here, but yeah, I'm going to continue here. So after Hamlet, Williamson honestly had a career that most actors would envy. I mean, you go to his IBDB and IMDb, he's got so many credits. He's done a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And he was able to book fairly frequent work, even though he never became the big star that he always wanted to be.
Hmm.
And that's probably due to what many reporters would label in his obituaries as, quote, unpredictable behavior.
Oh, Lord.
And this is where we have the turn.
It sounded like quite a sharp one.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Even though Williamson is most often remembered for his performances in Inadmissible Evidence and Hamlet, he is more frequently known for his erratic behavior on and off stage throughout his career.
Mm.
Besides his fairly quick rise in the 1960s, he really couldn't connect success from one project to another, and that's partly due to a volatile nature. You know, I mean, like you can see an actor, like I take the career of Robert Downey Jr. You know, you see this kid doing amazing stuff, and he just couldn't beat the demons of addiction for a long, long time. And once he did, shoo, he's off.
Yep.
Mm.
You know, it's just this project leads to this project leads to this project, and you know,
And even
yeah,
now, he's the new villain in the Marvel
oh
series.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree with that.
My friends and listeners, if you know the story of Nicol Williamson from here on out, I think you can confirm that the rest of the show is going to be a bumpy ride. There are so many things that Williamson did that made him memorable, and often not in the greatest of lights. We'll get to that in a moment. However, before we continue, I want to make sure that you've got that website down and you're looking into the new play Dissonance by Marci J, Duncan and Kerry Sandell. Go to dissonanceplay.com and get yourself connected with this truly excellent work. You won't be disappointed that you did. But now, let's get back to Dissonance playwrights Marci J. Duncan and Kerry Sandell for the second half of episode 93, Nicol Williamson. So, I'll describe some of the major events to you, and let's see how you feel about how things went down. I'll also, kind of wrap things up by giving some possible, fairly tragic reasons why Williamson acted so erratically, personally, and professionally. Like I said earlier, Inadmissible Evidence was doing so well in London that it was optioned for an American run in 1964. This run was produced by notorious producer David Merrick.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't listened to my episode 16, The Stunts of David Merrick, I outlined some of the more infamous stories about the things Merrick would do to get people to keep buying tickets to his shows. I mean, here's one I can just recall really quick. So in 1980, when he opened 42nd Street, it was right across the street from Cats. And everybody was going to see Cats. Everybody was going to see Cats. So what he did was he set his curtain time 15 minutes later than Cats' curtain time, so that if people got off the train or the bus and they go to Cats and they think they're going to get a ticket, they're like, oh, it's sold out. And they turn around and go, oh, hey, there's a show across the street. Let's just go to that.
I heard that.
That
I
works.
heard it. Brilliant. I love it.
But he did all kinds of yucky publicity stunts, and David Merrick was a special kind of being. So instead of sending it straight to Broadway, Merrick was actually smart to test Osborne's play out of town in Philadelphia. I mean, it had been known to happen that a play will have tremendous success on the West End, but tank when it gets transferred to Broadway. So I kind of get this move. On its first night of previews, the play was running long. At 11 o'clock, the play was still going. But that's when most trains stopped running out to the suburbs. For the last half hour of the play, audience members streamed out of the play early to catch their trains.
Oh, no.
This irritated Merrick immensely. It's said that Merrick stormed backstage after the performance and demanded that director Anthony Page, who was Williamson's good friend, he demanded that Page retrieve playwright John Osborne from whatever vacation he was taking and make the play at least 30 minutes shorter.
Wow.
2 weeks later, Merrick took a train from New York to see a production, and only to find out that the play had not been edited at all and still ran long. Merrick again stormed backstage and fired director Anthony Page on the spot. Page went to Williamson's dressing room where the actor was unwinding with a can of Budweiser. Once Page told Williamson about the firing, Williamson then approached David Merrick and told him that if Page goes, he'd go too. Now, there are a few versions of this story, so I'll tell a couple of the versions of how things started and then synthesize how they progressed. Upon hearing that Williamson planned to leave, Merrick either said something to the effect of, "That's okay, it was a turkey-lurkey of a production," indicating that it was destined to bomb. Or it could be that Merrick said to Williamson something to the effect of, "That's okay, you're replaceable."
I'm gonna
Got
go with
some-
A, and I'm that's my final answer. I'm gonna go with A.
I don't know. I wouldn't put it past Merrick to say something like that.
Oh,
I wouldn't put it past him. Yeah.
It's abuse.
From there, the events seem to have gone like this. The can of Budweiser that Williamson was holding flew across the room at Merrick, followed quickly by Williamson himself. Some claim that it was an all-out brawl. Some claim that it wasn't really more than a shoving and slapping match until Williamson clocked Merrick across the jaw, sending him tumbling backward into a trash can.
All of the above. I'm gonna go with. All
I
of
think
the-
it was a knockdown drag out. This boy
Yeah,
from
they
Scotland
fought.
and
They,
you gotta
they,
take
they had a
anything.
tussle. They had a grown man tussle.
Oh,
About the incident, Williamson later commented on Merrick's character by noting that none of his lackeys came to his rescue.
Kerry, you better not. You better have my back. You better get in
I
there.
got your back. I'll also hold you back if I need to.
Now, did either Page or Williamson actually lose their jobs? No. An
Ooh.
hour after the incident, Merrick hired Page back, and Williamson never left. Page had explained that the cuts hadn't happened because Osborne hadn't been available to come to Philadelphia to make the cuts. He did show up the following night, approved the cuts, and even Williamson appraised the cuts after a few performances, stating that he didn't have to work as hard every night.
Oh my God.
Wow.
He could get to the same place and just wouldn't have to go as hard. I
Right.
get it. I get it. Williamson was interviewed soon after the incident and stated that he probably allowed Merrick hundreds of thousands of dollars of free press and ticket sales by punching him. I can't necessarily link the two, but remember, soon after in 1965, Inadmissible Evidence went to Broadway, Merrick produced it, and Williamson was nominated for a Tony. So yeah,
Okay.
that press went everywhere.
Oh, no doubt.
They work together for the good of that. Mhm.
We're together by resetting a jaw.
Yes.
I think it would work against us if you and I had a knockdown drag out, given
Yeah, it
the
wouldn't
theme
hit
and
the
the vision of our play.
No pun intended. It wouldn't hit the same.
We
It
can't
would be
stage a
different.
fight for publicity purposes.
I can see the headline now. Two women have a conversation about race, beat the shit out of each other.
Right. Right. Will their friendship survive? Yes.
So, we're going to talk about Hamlet here. His Hamlet. After the run on Broadway and the film adaptation, it seems that the show went on tour. One night during a 2-week engagement at the Zellerbach Auditorium in Berkeley, California, Williamson was trucking along as usual, but at one point stopped, broke character, and spoke directly to the audience. Quote, "I'm so sorry. I just don't know what to say. I'm just not feeling it tonight. I suppose you should get your money back." End quote.
Woo!
Oh,
Wow.
He called the rest of the cast on stage for a curtain call, a cast that included a young Angelica Houston, and left the stage.
Oh my gosh.
Left the stage. He did the rest of the run just fine.
oh my goodness.
Yikes.
You still had a job the next day?
Uh-huh. Well, he was Nicol
Oh.
Williamson in Hamlet. He was the
Right.
best Hamlet since Gielgud. He was the best actor since Brando.
And Nicol doesn't feel like it, then we all don't feel like it.
That's right. That's right. Sorry.
Wow,
I can't give you Hamlet tonight. It's just not in me.
I'm sorry, it's not there. And you don't want me to give it to you if it's not there. So go ahead, we'll give you your money back. Tell him
Wow.
I said give you your money back.
Look, you can tell when LeBron James is having an off night. That's what I know.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, but he's not going to walk out of the game.
He has been known to leave games early, though.
Golly.
On the same tour, during the run in Boston in 1969, Williamson again stopped mid-performance and announced that he was retiring from acting and left the stage.
It's starting now.
Right, effective now.
It's reported that he went backstage and threw a wine pitcher and a goblet at the back wall, but then he walked back on stage, humbly apologized, and continued the performance.
Diva.
Wow.
I quit. No, I don't. Sorry.
I quit the play. Psych.
Golly.
Made you look.
Yes.
Oh.
And that's where you have to ask yourself, okay, this person's brilliant, but is it worth working with them?
Yeah.
I mean, think about the rest of the cast.
Mm-hmm.
When you're sitting backstage going, wait, what? What did you just say?
Yeah.
We don't have a show.
Well, I mean, also, but you got to think about that. Yeah, he's the Hamlet, but your Ophelia in that show is going through a lot of stuff too.
Right.
Your Gertrude is going through a lot of stuff. Your Polonius.
Now, that's the role I want to play.
Me too.
Play Gertrude.
Ooh.
There are better roles for our age than there are for young women.
I know.
So much better.
Damn right.
Write
Right.
our own. But I want to play Gertrude. I definitely want.
I do too.
Now, evidently, his antics still didn't overshadow his performances.
Wow.
In 1970, he was personally invited to the White House by President Richard Nixon to perform some of his Hamlet for him, and he happily accepted the invitation. Yeah, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I'm gonna say all the best actors have to be a little crazy.
A bit. Yes, thank you. Yes. It's kind of like running for president.
It is. And
why do you want this job?
You gotta be a little crazy. You gotta be just a little bit.
Why? I mean, do you think it's like your emotions are just so close to the surface? What is that?
I
have some theories.
Yeah, and one part of it, I think, is because if this is your passion, if this is what you do, if this is what you love, then you don't do it a little bit. You go in and you avail yourself, you give it 110%. And switching characters every month or so, that's not a normal behavior, right? Like that's not a normal thing. We have made it a normal thing because it is our job. But if you're not actively processing and therapy and doing the work and super aware.
Yes. Yeah. I did a whole episode or two actually on the marriage of Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Miller. And I became such a huge fan of Marilyn after that.
Really?
But mainly because I'm like, you just needed somebody to love you, you poor thing, and you never saw it. She never got it. And the pressure of being Marilyn Monroe, having to be that day in and day out.
What partner could handle that? But here's the thing too. If you think about some of the big wigs out there, right? The heavy hitters acting, the real heavy hitters. Think about Meryl Streep. Think about my favorite, Denzel Washington. You do not see their lives.
No.
You don't, you're not intimately involved in their lives. They are very private. They are very protective over their lives. Their partners are protected. And I think it's on purpose because it's like, this is my life. This is my profession, right? And my life is sacred. I'm going to keep it sacred because those are the people who actually tell me, okay, you're getting a little too much. Okay, you're going off the deep end. And I actually listen to them versus my career where these people all tell me, yes, 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 ma'am. Yes, yes, yes. Do it more. You're great. You're fantastic. Right. So I think when I think about acting as a profession, I think about those individuals who have been able to do their job and also keep their family and their personal lives personal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredible feat.
Yeah.
Because then it ceases to become about the acting and the job, and it starts to become about the celebrity.
Yes.
Mm.
And then it gets yucky, you know?
Well, and then the emotional needs met by that celebrity.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
whatever they're looking for. I mean, and then you're in a dangerous situation where maybe it's never enough.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, anyway, evidently this private performance for Nixon did not sit well with some of the theater community.
Ooh,
Can you imagine in 1970,
yeah.
Vietnam era, Hair is on Broadway.
Oh,
Right.
Now, I could never actually read the thing because it lived behind paywalls online, but theater critic and artist Kenneth Tynan published an absolutely scathing essay in the New Yorker denouncing Williamson's performance for Nixon. Tynan condemned his perception of Williamson's ego, claiming that Williamson was, quote, proof against John Donne's belief that no man is an island entire of itself, end quote. I'm assuming that it was some sort of disapproval of Nixon's handling of the conflict in Vietnam, and that Williamson's private performance was it was seen as a passive approval of Nixon's administration.
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But like I said, I could never read the essay itself.
Mhm.
Nonetheless, Williamson publicly stood by how offended he was by Tynan's essay, and the once good friends never spoke to each other again.
Mm.
Wow.
Right?
That's interesting.
In 1974, Williamson played the title character in the Scottish play, and I try not to say the actual title anymore. I'm trying to respect my audiences, and I don't want them to stop listening.
Right.
In any case, he played the role at Stratford for the Royal Shakespeare Company opposite Helen Mirren as Lady M.
Mm. Nice.
I love this story. During one performance, which was a school matinee, apparently a lot of the youngsters in the audience couldn't stop talking. I've been there. This is in the middle of their school day, and they're just excited to be anywhere but school.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently Williamson wasn't having it. At one point, he stopped the performance, broke character, slammed down a stool he was holding, and yelled at the audience to shut up. Harry, your face is priceless. He then shamed the audience, stating that he could have been making loads more money doing a film in America, but he felt it was more worth his time to bring this important work of art to these people at this time, and they were squandering their opportunity.
His soapbox, didn't he?
I know. Oh, he's not done. He shamed the students, claiming that there were also people in the audience who purchased tickets for that performance, and the students were wasting their money and ruining the experience for those paying customers.
Mm.
I mean, we're just wagging all the fingers here.
Yes.
He concluded by saying that if he had to stop the production again, he would start it again from the beginning, and if he heard any inappropriate noise from the audience, he would stop and start again. He said they would do this until the play was completed. From that moment on, there was no more noise from the crowd, and the play concluded.
Wow.
I will turn this car around.
I will turn and we'll go back to the house. We'll go back to, we're not going to Disney World.
And I have no idea if there was applause at the curtain collar.
Wow. Those kids never forgot that.
I bet they have.
Ever. And they probably don't have a good memory of that.
God.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was not the last time that Williamson worked with Helen Mirren. In 1980, Williamson was cast in probably his most recognized film role as Merlin in Excalibur.
Oh, Anal Nathrak Uthpaspatha Donesiende.
Yes, Carrie, yes.
That's one of those movies you have down. Okay, cool. Now, opposite him as the evil influence on young King Arthur was Helen Mirren as Morgan Le Fay.
Right.
And evidently, after the run of the Scottish play, it was rumored that Williamson came to completely despise Helen Mirren, even though there wasn't really an origin that could be determined. It just was. And here's a quote from Helen Mirren on her experience taking the role. Director John Borman convinced me that he would help me make it work. And of course, being greedy and wanting the role, I said, fuck it, I'll just put up with it. In fact, Nicol and I wound up becoming very good friends on it. We were finally free of that play, and I'm sure the play had a lot to do with it. So I finished up loving him. And I've heard those stories so often about this. I left so many stories out where they're like, yeah, he was a real jerk, but we got along like gangbusters.
Because you gotta respect it. You gotta respect the talent. He's manic because he's so good, and he's so good because he's manic.
So, I mean, yeah, we can see that Williamson is something of a risk factor in casting, and not just because of his potential for reprimanding the audience, but also that he had something of reputation for being potentially difficult to work with. I mean, you never know if you're going to get into a Nicol Williamson project, if he's going to hate you or love you by the end of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But this, if you cast him, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. Now you might do some stuff, but it's going to be good.
Yeah. But that reputation of being difficult to work with may have been well earned. In 1976, Williamson returned to Broadway to play King Henry VIII in the Richard Rodgers musical Rex. Play wasn't doing too well and closed after only about 2 months. On the closing night performance during the curtain call, a chorus member named Jim Litton shouted to the audience, "It's a wrap." Unfortunately, Williamson didn't hear him correctly. Williamson thought his castmate looked at the crowd and earnestly said, "It's crap."
Oh, no.
Thus, in front of the closing night crowd, Williamson marched over to Litton, said, "Don't you ever talk to me like that," and slapped him across the face. Marci's jaw just hit the floor.
Man.
Well, I mean, you got to stand up for yourself.
But you got to have the facts, Nicole. You gotta have the facts, man.
Yeah.
Williamson warned Litton not to say it again, but seemed to provoke Litton to do so. Like, "Don't you say it again," and then just like puffed up his chest, like, "Come on, say it again. Do it. I want to slap you again."
I bet you won't say it again.
And the altercation made headlines, and most stories I read reminded readers about the incident Williamson had with David Merrick years earlier. Oh, here's another fun incident. Sometime soon after Hamlet, Williamson was booked to appear on the Dick Cavett Show. He was the second guest in the show, the first being Nora Ephron. The show would usually run about 90 minutes or so, and the first guest usually had a little bit more fame or a little bit more well-known of a product to promote. This was the case in this episode. Cavett and Ephron spoke at length, and Williamson, waiting in the wings, got tired of waiting and just up and left, forcing Cavett and Ephron to vamp for the better part of a half hour after they had basically talked about everything they needed to.
Wow, nice.
Just up and leave. I mean, look,
Nice.
I've been there where you're waiting for a while, you're waiting for something to happen, and shoot, I've been on film sets. That's all. It's hurry up and wait. It's always hurry up and wait. And then when you finally get to the thing, they put you in your set. You got to hit your mark, and they're like, "All right, ready, action." Wait, no, stop. We got to reset, and takes them another 4 or 5 minutes. I get it. I
mean, and this is stating the obvious that, actors are narcissists a lot of times, but the narcissism of the world only revolves around me and I cannot make room for anyone else.
Right.
It's got to be very intimidating as a castmate.
Yeah.
Going into a project thinking, "Oh God, what's going to happen?"
Yeah.
Well, and you think about the audience too. I mean, there's part of it where you go, he just ghosted Dick Cavett. and that's a huge audience. Like, you just walked out, and people know that. But at the same time, people like, there might be a draw to that ticket. Like, I wonder what he is gonna do tonight.
That's true.
That's true.
But I would have to say that the most egregious example of onstage unpredictable behavior from Nicol Williamson occurred in 1991. The Paul Rudnick comedy I Hate Hamlet had Williamson cast as the spirit of legendary actor John Barrymore, assisting a struggling TV actor to find more interest in his craft. Now, this could have been an opportunity for Williamson to have something of a resurgence and get a second chance at winning over crowds in the entertainment industry. And while his performance was praised for being the same type of larger-than-life style that Williamson was known for, he just couldn't prevent himself from being utterly unpredictable.
Mhm.
Evidently, one night during a curtain speech, he suggested to the audience that they, quote, "go home and have great sex." I mean,
Tell
good
me-
advice, but, you know, must have just had a fun time. Yeah.
Wow.
Here's a quote. On closing night, after I Hate Hamlet was shut out of nominations for the 1991 Tony Awards, Williamson had a seething curtain speech lambasting the nomination process, bitterly telling the stunned crowd everything about it is appalling. I mean, I get it. You got snubbed, but, you know,
Golly.
go to the next project, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
He don't want to work.
Here we go, Marci. During
Okay.
rehearsals, Williamson would often criticize and berate his other actors, demanding better performances out of them. If he didn't get it, he would just often leave the rehearsal.
Oh my gosh.
Not only notes, but you suck.
I'm leaving. You're wasting my time. I'm
Oh,
out of here.
wow. Something
Call me when you
else.
have talent.
Uh-huh. But I think the most
Ouch.
unpredictable thing that Williamson did was to legitimately assault his stage partner. During a performance, Williamson had a sword as a prop. Completely against the blocking and choreography of the scene, Williamson got a little too into character and swatted his stage partner, Evan Handler, across the backside with the flat end of the blade.
Oh my God.
Completely befuddled and frustrated, Handler left the stage and never returned.
Oh.
Yeah, I get it. I get
I
it.
ain't take it. I'm not
Oof.
taking that.
Yeah.
He quit the show then and there.
You're
Wow.
out of control, sir. You are out of
Mhm.
control. And I'm
Yep.
not getting ready to be on stage with you.
Handler's understudy played the role for the rest of the run. So that kid got some good exposure.
Oh my
Mm.
gosh. You know who I keep thinking of? I keep thinking of the poor stage manager calling the show.
No. Okay, he's going off stage again. He's going off stage. Okay, cue curtain, cue curtain.
That's right. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you call when you got a live cannon on stage?
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
wait, he's coming back. He's coming back. It's okay. He's not retiring acting. Yeah.
Crisis averted.
Golly.
Yeah. And I guess Evan Handler, the guy who got swatted, would later say that the incident left a half-inch tall black and blue welt across one of his buttocks for weeks.
Oh, he got more than smacked then. Like
Yeah.
he got hit
Yeah.
hard.
It's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Williamson moved to Amsterdam sometime in the early 90s. He was last seen on stage in Scotland in the early 2000s. Nicol Williamson died of esophageal cancer at the age of 75. At his request, his death was not announced until nearly a month later, as he didn't really care about publicity. It's said that around 6 people attended his funeral.
Mm.
That's a shame.
Now, this erratic behavior, he's had several biographies written, some of them authorized, some of them unauthorized. But there were a few things that I could point to in my research that I'm like, I think this might be it. He had a few big issues, and this came really late in my research. So after I was like reading about all these events and, you know, quietly giggling to myself, I look back on this and went, oh no, this man was really fighting some demons.
Mm.
First of all, apparently he had a terrible fear of death, like thought about it all the time. And apparently this is why Samuel Beckett liked him so much, because he was obsessed with it.
Right. Right.
And so he's like, you're perfect for my plays.
I have this play. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Apparently in one interview in the 1960s with David Frost, Williamson said this: I think of death constantly throughout the day. I don't think there is anything after this except complete oblivion.
So hopeless.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like, I have this one
Mm.
shot to really live life. But some, you know, that's the other side of it. Like, you can't always predict life. You know,
No, you can't predict life ever.
you can
Yeah.
play the game. You can play the game, but, you know, the game doesn't always play the way you want it to. So,
Oh no.
Absolutely. So hopeless and so much anxiety, like on a
Right.
daily basis, if that's really
Yeah.
consuming your thoughts.
In darkness.
Yep.
Darkness.
Now, here's another one I'll bring up, and it was only referenced the one time: his feeling of abandonment by his parents. You know, when he had to go away for a few years and live with grandma and grandpa so he wouldn't get bombed.
Mhm.
I mean, I get it. You're 3 years old. I want mommy. I want daddy. No, you have to go off and live somewhere else. I mean, my kids are 16 and 13 now, and they did 1 year of homeschooling during COVID. We were just like
Mhm.
his mother, we live in separate households, and we just made that decision. Like, sorry guys, you have to be home this year because we're not
Yeah,
sure
dangerous.
what's going to happen. And
Mhm.
they lost that year of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So they often will talk about like I was just talking with one of them last night. He goes, "Well, this is my third year back in the world." I'm like, yeah, okay, I hear you.
Yeah,
Williamson quoted to have smoked up to 80 cigarettes a day.
that's that
What?
anxiety.
That's some anxiety, yeah. But the biggest one, and this is the one that I'm like, oh man, I hate that I have to address this and talk about this because it answers so much for me. So many people said he was so dark and tormented, but also struggled very hard with alcohol addiction.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm like, now this is starting to come to light. But at the
Yeah.
same time, Marci, like you were saying, like there's a thing where the theater shouldn't always be your therapist,
That's right. That's
you know?
right. Right. That's where we went wrong back in the old days.
Oh my God.
Mhm.
That's where we
Yeah.
went wrong. And now, you know, we can create a different type of theater culture,
Yeah.
one that is healthy and
Mhm.
one
Mhm.
that is about balance and boundaries. You
Mhm.
know, we be able to do that.
Yeah. I went back and looked at some of my old acting books from college, and one of them was Uta Hagen's Respect for Acting.
Uh-huh.
And I got about halfway through it and I went, I cannot believe we were told this shit. Because I mean, there was one chapter where they talk about taking care of yourself, like one little paragraph.
Yeah.
And they keep talking about emotional recall and stuff like that in that play, where it's
Mhm.
like, you might not know what it's like to be this character in these situations, but you know what it's like to have this feeling. So think about that time. And then it's just a small little disclaimer after that that says, well, to be honest, if you haven't fully worked through that feeling with a therapist, it probably isn't the best thing for you to, yeah,
Maybe pick
Don't do
something
it.
else.
yeah,
Right. That's
yeah.
right.
And that's where I come back
Wow.
to like Marilyn Monroe, who never got
Mhm.
over her demons and just
Mhm.
used the screen to try to get over them.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's hard. That is hard. That is hard right there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And all this research I did, like I never found anything like, there was a driving force. There was something he was trying to achieve. There was something he just wasn't getting. He was married for about 6 or 7 years. They had a kid. His son was the one who announced his death. It wasn't like he was really lonely. But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like nothing is
Had a
out
family.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had family. He had
Uh-huh.
connection.
And he had friends.
Yeah. But addicts are always lonely because there's this whole piece of themselves that they don't show anyone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's why you see that, when we talked about before the narcissism and stuff. I mean, that is, if he was an addict, that's what you get, and
Yeah.
you get the inconsistency of behavior and relationships and the erratic, decisions
Hmm.
and lack of concern for consequences and all of that stuff. That's all part of that pretty package you get. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so it does explain a lot,
Hmm.
that you can be brilliant and also be really sick.
And really
Yeah.
tortured, and you're not fixing that. You're
Mhm.
hoping that, by like I've gone through that journey myself. I grew up in a small school where, if you were an athlete you were praised, but if you had any
Mhm.
artistic stuff, it's like, well, that's just a thing you do.
Right.
And when I first started to get attention for being on stage, I'm like, oh, this is really what I want to do. And then after a while, it's just kind of crafted into, no, I still feel this compulsion to do this, but I have to fill that need for that attention some other way or something. I have to
Mhm.
have those meaningful relationships in my life. I can still do this
Mhm.
thing, but yeah, the stage to audience interaction is very, very impersonal, and you're not going to get that same feeling
Right.
as coming home and there's your partner saying, "How was work today?" You know,
Right.
so
Right.
Why he would probably go off on an audience that isn't listening, because it's like you're supposed to be praising me. You're supposed to be in awe of
Fill
what
that
I
hole.
right. You're supposed to fill
Mm,
that void, and they are not there.
Right.
yeah.
yeah. But anyway, that's my story on Nicol Williamson.
Well, thank you. That was awesome.
That was amazing.
What a
And
journey.
my favorite thing you didn't mention is that he was on an episode of Columbo. And Columbo
Aw.
That's right. Yes.
is my very favorite show.
Oh, I
Just
love
one more thing.
Columbo.
Columbo. I used to watch it
If-
with my grandma, and I used to love it.
Like, would that be the time for me, Marci, right now to, like, you know, scratch my head and turn around and go, just one more thing?
One more thing. Yes.
Oh, just one more thing.
Y'all, we're dating ourselves. We're dating ourselves.
I know.
Yes, we are. So we're gonna cut.
Anybody 1990 born after that is all like, what's a Columbo?
Do yourself a favor. Go watch.
That's
Yeah.
right. I can't even begin to think which one of these incidents would make me say, it's been a privilege to Nicol Williamson. But any one of them could take the cake. On the other hand, I hate to know that the man suffered so much with several unfortunate crosses to bear. But to that, my friends, I will say, what did Jerry Springer always used to tell us? Take care of yourselves and each other. I want to thank Marci J, Duncan and Kerry Sandell for their contributions to this episode, and one last time, I'll direct you to go to dissonanceplay.com to see how you can get involved in spreading the word. Now, though, I'll sign off. This has been another episode of Euripides Eumenides, a theater history podcast. I have been your host, Aaron Odom. Another episode will be in your ears in a fortnight, and I will see you at intermission.